Okay, so here we are with part 2 of the CMP rack grade unboxing from the 4th of July. Now initially this looked really rough and I was pretty concerned about it, but since then it's sort of grown on me, and I'll show you a little bit of why I feel that way. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the major components now that we have it all broken down here. Let's go ahead and start with the barreled action. Now, of course, initially we could see some pitting along the wood line here on both sides, as well as the front towards the chamber and the rear towards the stampings. And, well, underneath isn't much better. In fact, it's a little bit worse. Now, I've seen worse pitting, and I don't think this is detrimental. I'm willing to work with it, but there is quite a bit of pitting here on the right legs and some on the left, mostly just under the wood there. But on the rear of the receiver, there's some good pockets of pitting, which isn't so great. But again, this is a rack grade, and it was advertised as such. The other thing was the wood. Let's go ahead and take a look at this now. There was a couple of cracks that I was concerned about, but here we are after 5 coats of linseed oil, and this is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of the issues I was concerned about. Number one was this crack along the wrist, and I noticed that it has been repaired, and that was a professional repair, and it's in good shape. I can't make it move, and it looks pretty good. So that's comforting. Now, the second thing was there was a little bit of what I thought was a crack underneath, but it just seems to be of the surface and doesn't go all the way through, which is nice. I am going to check that and see if I can stretch it, if I have to glass or glue something in there, but it's looking pretty good. Now, I'm not sure. I imagine this is one of the Philippine returns or one from South Korea. But we can see here that it did have some good markings, some rack numbers, something along those lines. And if you look at it in the right light, you can see it was scrubbed. Someone took some sort of tool and just tried to scratch all that off to the best of their ability. You can see that here under the grip, and you can see it in a couple different locations. So, although that is unfortunate, you know, it is what it is. Now let's get to the fore ends. We have this one is looking pretty nice. This one only took 3 coats of linseed oil, and the top handguard here does have a pretty good crack right there, and I can kind of stretch that out a little bit, so we'll go ahead and repair that. But otherwise, gave this 3 coats of linseed oil also, and it's looking pretty good, and these are all matching pretty well. This does have the relief cut here. So moving on, we have, let's just go to the trigger group. Everything looks good in here. Mostly these are new parts. You have some International Harvester parts, Harrington and Richardson, and they seem to be mostly newer parts, or at least reparkerized. Okay, let's go to the bolt. The bolt is a Winchester bolt, and the face looks good. Doesn't seem to be bent. Alright, so the recoil spring looks to be a new spring, which is nice. Let's take a look at the operating rod. This is going to be a later one. This is a Springfield Armory. It does have the pretty significant relief cut here, and it's looking in pretty good shape. I will clean up the end of this piston, but no major pitting down here, which is good. And this is sort of the black phosphate. I'm not sure what that material is called, but it's in good shape. And here we have the gas block, which is also this similar black paint. So I'm not sure which model piece this is, but it's in good shape also. Same with the butt plate. Pretty good shape. Same black finish. Same with the sling swivel there. Okay, let's get to some of the interesting parts. Now we have an early type gas cylinder lock screw with the single slot, which is pretty nice. And then we also have the bullet guide. That is a forged piece. It does have some pitting in the back here, but still a good piece. This one's marked 50S. Pretty nice. We also have the follower, which is an early style piece, marked 11. And my favorite part about this is the barrel is a reverse marked 1942 Springfield barrel, which I believe is the original barrel for this receiver. So that's pretty cool.
Because I was inverted.
While we're talking about the barrel, we can do some gauging here, and surprisingly, it is right around a 2. So that's not bad at all, considering what this looked like when I pulled it out. I don't have a throat gauge, so I can't check that at the moment, but I will get one of those before I post this up. So it's really nice to have an original barrel for this receiver. Again, this was a 6-digit number, which put it probably about 1942. I forget which month at this point, but I'm going to continue going through the data sheet. What I try to do is either have them into one of 2 categories. First category would be a shooter, right, with more modern parts that I know is going to be reliable and not worth as much from a collector standpoint, but is much better as a shooter. And 2, which is going to be collectible, which has more of the original World War II parts, especially some that might not be as good of quality or in the best shape, but have more collector value. I mean, there's a reason that they changed from the earlier style parts to later style parts. So, after all this being said, having the original barrel on this receiver and a couple other things, I think I might keep this one and turn it into a collector version. So what that means to me is just having more original parts on here. Of course, you know, the op rod and quite a few of the other pieces are not early style parts or original, which are replacements, but I can go through and kind of change out some of the other ones from other items themselves and kind of build up a Springfield collector model here. A lot of people have a different version of being collector correct, which I'm not going to argue right now, but you know, parts were interchanged quite often, and sometimes parts were interchanged before they left the factory, so in some cases they won't be all 100% matching. So anyway, so what I'm just going to do is do my best to make this one, for now, a collector's version. After we get it greased up, reassembled, and see if I need to do any more work on that stock, see what kind of accuracy we can get. Now, this being my collector variant, I'm going to not shoot it too often, but I do want to still shoot it. So I'm going to get out there and see what kind of groups I can get and just go from there. All right, so let's take a quick moment and go over some references. If you're like me and you enjoy working on firearms because it gets you off the computer and away from things that require Wi-Fi and batteries, then you might be a hard copy book guy just like myself. There are quite a few references online And those are wonderful. Those are great and very helpful. However, for me, I hate touch screens when my hands are greasy. And again, I just don't want to be online and on the computer if I don't have to be. So with that said, if you're going to do any work on an M1, I highly recommend the Shop Manuals Volume 1 and 2 for the US 30 caliber gas-operated service rifles by Jerry Kuhnhausen. These shop manuals are worth their weight in gold. These are fantastic and really give you some serious details in terms of tolerances, parts, the fit, finish, and very specific details on troubleshooting and pretty much anything that can go wrong. So if you're going to be fixing anything, definitely pick up one of these. And in fact, his entire shop manual series on anything he does is worth picking up. Now, as one of the requirements, if you're going to purchase from the CMP, you have to be involved in certain groups, and one of those that I chose was the GCA, and their magazines are fantastic. And this comes quarterly, I believe, and there's just great stories, and there's some great gunsmithing articles and just history about a lot of different things. And I really recommend them, and they're a great group, and I think it's $25 a year, and it's an excellent resource. Now next, I found myself really enjoying this book by Jim Thompson, which is a great resource for practical usage of the M1, as well as some pretty good collector's information in here as well. It's not going to give you those hard numbers in terms of production dates, numbers produced, that sort of thing, but the wealth of information he has in here from his decades of working with and tuning M1s is fantastic. All right, so next we have the series of books by Scott Duff, which are great. This one is the owner's guide. He also has the World War II versions as well as the post-war versions. So here you're going to find a lot of hard numbers, dates, production numbers, part numbers, and that sort of thing. And if that's what you're looking for, this is a great little series. And I don't think these are too expensive either. The World War II section does have a second, if not a third, updated edition, so that's great to have. And finally, for me, you can't go wrong with Bruce Canfield's book. This covers quite a bit of some of the same information, but just really more in-depth and detail with beautiful glossy photographs, some in black and white, some in color, some history, some shooting data, all kinds of stuff. Now, this is an expensive book. These go for around $100, but I think you can still get them on the CMP website along with the Scott Duff book series, and these are a little more reasonably priced if you're looking for hard dates and numbers. And again, if you're looking for a guide on practical shooting, check this one out by Jim Thompson. Excellent book. Now finally, speaking of the GCA, on their website they have a nice link to a data sheet, which I use for all of mine to keep track of not only the serial number and the make, but the parts that came along with it as I received them from the CMP or from a trade or otherwise, in case you're looking to put together one that is correct for that time period and anything along those lines. I'll go ahead and leave a link in that one. And another resource is the Freedom of Information Act. I've been using that for a while, and although the Army records only go back to 1975, I believe, you can still pick up a little bit of information here and there and add it to your documents if you're that kind of person. Now, for me, this one came up a hit on April 24th of 2018 when the Army headquarters received this back as a batch from the Philippines. So, not surprisingly, given that stock condition, this was a buyback from the Joint Military Assistance Program in the Philippines, and of course then it was transferred to the CMP. Now that's only a little bit of information, but it helps tell part of the story, and it's free after all. All right, so here she is. This has been 7 coats of linseed oil now, and I'm really happy with how this stock has come out. About every 3-4 days it asks for another coat, so I'm going to keep giving it to her until she's all full. But so far it's feeling really great. Again, the hand guards don't need any more. They're doing really well, but this butt stock could use a little bit still, and but overall it's feeling really good. Now, thanks to a fellow collector, I was able to replace the Winchester bolt with a Springfield Armory bolt that is correct to the serial number and time frame. So that's really exciting. Again, this is going to be my collector version. Now, I'm not in a hurry to go through and replace all these parts. It's going to be kind of a long-term project that I'm just going to enjoy the search and the collection of. Also went ahead and found, this is a reproduction sling, which is always sad, but this came out really well after soaking in some neat's foot oil, and I think it fits really nicely on here. So again, I really like this buttstock. However, I do have another option, which thanks to another collector is going to be this stock here, which is a wartime production, as this one is not. And I think it matches pretty well, even though a lot of these were mismatched in terms of color and that sort of thing. But I think that I might end up going with this one. So to this person, I want to say thank you very much for that. Overall, that's pretty much all I'm going to do to it now, besides get her out and see what kind of groups I can get, and just keep on the hunt for specific pieces that I need to build this up. One last thing, that's a little better. Don't want to leave the house without a hat. So this is coming along really well, and I'm excited. So this is going to be the U.S. Rifle Caliber 30 M1 from the CMP unboxing on the 4th of July. I'll go ahead and post some updates if I find any other parts or if I decide to swap out this stock. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Till next time, keep your fingers off the trigger, and we'll see you later. I had to give you one.